Just happy my room's not freezing. I'm comfortable today. So, okay. Lesson 2.2, you'll notice it says standard form of a quadratic equation. So if you look back at your 2.1 notes, 2.1 was vertex form. So one form of the equation you need to be familiar with is the vertex form. The second form you need to be familiar with is standard form. And so standard form of a quadratic equation is this y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, these are the two basic forms we use. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are just numbers. Integers, real numbers is what they're listed as. Okay, so positive or negative, fractions or decimals, whole numbers, whatever. And the requirement is always thrown on there, a cannot equal 0. Because if a is 0, this is no longer a quadratic because the x squared term isn't there. Okay, now, the nice part about vertex form was that the vertex was staring at us. It was there, we just had to pull it out of the equation. Standard form, we have to do a little bit more work to get our vertex. And unfortunately, standard form is the one you're more likely to receive on a problem. Okay? So, now, first formula here, axis of symmetry formula. As I said, axis of symmetry is not just going to be saying right there, this is what the axis of symmetry is. You're going to have to do work to find it. The formula I'm going to provide you for axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a, where b and a are coming from my ABCs up here. Okay, so that's our axis of symmetry formula. The vertex, in order to get the vertex done, well, if you know the axis of symmetry, keep in mind that means you know the first half of the vertex, right? And so up here for the x coordinate of the vertex, you know, if we think hk, I put h equals negative b over 2a. But notice that's the same thing as the axis of symmetry, isn't it? So vertex is still the first number comes from the axis of symmetry. The second number, in order to get the y coordinate, just plug your x back into the equation. Okay. When we get down to graphing, which is at the bottom of the page, we'll talk about the fact that when you go to graph, okay, once you have a vertex, we need a little more information, don't we? Because these graphs are not going to be necessarily the ones that have an a value of 1. Okay, they're not going to necessarily be the ones that just go over 1 up 1 and over 2 up 4. So we're going to talk about the y-intercept and how easy that is. Okay? I'll try and remember to say it again later, but this also means the graphing you do in the homework is going to be different now. Because you'll have to plot the vertex, and then you'll have to use an extra point. Okay, so let's look at our first example. They ask us to find the vertex. Okay, baby steps. We're not going to jump right into graphing. Find the vertex. Well, in order to know the vertex, what do we have to know before we can find the vertex? Oh. I heard it whispered. Axis? Axis of symmetry?
Axis of symmetry.
Okay, now, do me a favor. Before I find the axis of symmetry, can you tell me your ABCs?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M.
Can you tell me your ABCs for this equation?
One.
Not our kindergarten ABCs, our algebra ABCs.
One. X, Y, Z.
There's no Z.
X, Y.
Wait a minute. You're confusing me.
Okay, so remembering this equation that we're given is in standard form, yes?
Yes.
So when I'm talking about ABCs, A is the number in front of x squared. What's the number in front of x squared here?
1.
An invisible 1 in this case. So A is 1. B is the number in front of x. What's my number in front of x?
-6.
-6. And C is my number, my constant number that's usually at the end, and that in this case is a
10.
positive 10. I know it seems silly, and I know there's going to be some of you that aren't going to write down your ABCs because you're saying, Mrs. Sargent, that was the silliest thing ever. However, when I go to plug things in, to me it's helpful if I have them written down. Okay, so don't be afraid to write those down. Okay, we're going to start with axis of symmetry. I can't spell symmetry today. There we go. What was my formula for axis of symmetry?
X equals negative b over 2a.
Okay, x equals negative b over 2a. So negative b means we're going to do the opposite of b. What is b?
-6.
So for the moment, I wrote the negative of -6. But if you're skipping ahead, what is the negative of -6?
6.
It's positive 6, right? Or I should be saying the opposite of -6. All over 2a. So 2 times what's a?
1.
1.
6.
Well, no, 3.
So 6 on top. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is
3.
3. So my axis of symmetry is not just 3, though.
X
X
equals.
equals.
X equals 3.
Focus.
Now, that tells me where my parabola is going to be centered. When you get to graphing these, I tried a few out last night. It did not make me graph the axis of symmetry. Sometimes when in Math Excel in the past, I've seen certain problems where you have to put that physical dotted line. It did not make me do this. Okay? Now, I had one I could for the life of me, could not get the vertex in the right spot. But so I just finally gave up. But when it showed me the right answer, it did not show an axis on there. So, okay. Now, are we done with this problem?
Absolutely.
No, because
Close.
I would say we're close. Vertex. If I ask you what the vertex is right now, what can you tell me?
I can tell you that it starts with 3.
Okay, it starts with 3. So if I write my vertex right now, it's 3, comma, something.
3.
Well, it's got to be y.
Got it. 1. 10.
Okay. How do I find that y value?
We just know we have to solve
C.
that problem.
Yeah. No, it's C.
The second after the vertex is not C. This is not vertex form. This is standard form.
What?
What do I do with 3? 3 is an x value. Where am I going to put that x value? Back into my original equation. So we're going to use the y equals x squared minus 6x plus 10. Except I'm going to say 3 squared minus 6 times 3 plus 10.
So it's
Okay.
like substitution.
Yeah, you're substituting the x value in for the x coordinate. 3 squared is
9.
9. 6 times 3 is
Negative
18.
Oh, don't go.
So mine reads 9 minus 18 plus 10. 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Plus 10 is 1. What is that 1?
Y. It's your y-intercept.
Not my y-intercept.
Y-intercept. Y.
It is my y value of my vertex. So right there, that goes in a second number of my vertex. The 3 from my axis of symmetry was the first number of the vertex, right? Every time. Now, if it's in vertex form, yeah, you can just grab those numbers. And I'm assuming when Aaron said he thought the second part of the vertex would be 10, I'm assuming you were reverting back to vertex form and thinking, oh, it's the number add or subtract at the end.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah, I missed that.
Okay? So, axis of symmetry in order to find vertex. Practice another one?
Absolutely.
Wait, so that's it?
That's it on that problem.
No kid.
That's easier than the
I'm gonna do the next one by myself.
Okay. For those of you following along with me, first thing I'm always going to do, well, I don't know about always, but while we're beginners, is I'm going to always mention my ABCs. You choose whether you write them down or not, but let's at least acknowledge them. What is A?
Nose.
2, the number in front of x squared. What's B? -8. The number in front of x. And what's c? 5. That number added or subtracted at the end, correct? Okay, some of you are working ahead. Hopefully you meet me in the end. Double check. Now, before I can find vertex, the first thing I have to find is axis of symmetry. What's my formula to finding axis of symmetry? X equals negative b over 2a, right? So negative of b, again, b is already a negative, isn't it? So negative of negative 8 is going to be positive 8 over 2 times a. So this time it's 2 times 2. We end up with 8 over 4, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Now, my concern is to make sure that you meet me at the end of the vertex, because that's the place I can see mistakes happening. What do we know about the vertex right now?
2.
We know it's 2. 2 comma something. Okay. What do I do with this 2? We're going to plug it in. So y equals, it's 2 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 5. Okay, that 2 times 2 squared is my concern. What is 2 squared? 4. And then what's 4 times 2? 8. Did you guys get 8 here?
Yeah.
Okay. Minus, what's 8 times 2?
16.
16, and then we'll have plus 5. 8 minus 16 is negative 8, plus 5 is negative 3. So I have a vertex of 2, negative 3. Not as quick as vertex form, because I definitely like vertex form better, but not horrible. Yes?
On like that 8 minus 16 plus 5, do you always just do the left side first?
Officially, when we're adding and subtracting, you should add and subtract in order from left to right. Now, you can pick and choose the order if you wanted to, as long as you take the appropriate signs with them. Like, I could have done 8 plus 5, which is 13, and 13 minus 16 is still negative 3. Or I could have just said negative 16 plus 5 is negative 11, and 8 minus 11 is negative 3. So as long as you use a positive 8, a negative 16, and a positive 5, you can technically add them in any order. Because I will say on certain problems, I tend to look for, when the numbers are a little more difficult, I tend to look for numbers that go together a little better. So, okay, we got it? And my big concern on this one, it's 2 times 2 squared, right? So you have to do the 2 squared and then multiply by 2. Okay, so you're pros at axis of symmetry and vertex, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So you're ready to graph. Okay. In order to graph this function, first of all, what kind of graph is this going to be? Is it a parabola? How do I know it's a parabola? Because it's x squared, yes? Okay, so it's a parabola. This is in standard form, which means in order to graph a parabola that's in standard form, I probably need to find my vertex. In order to find my vertex, I need to find my axis of symmetry. Now, for those of you that will humor me, what are my ABCs? What is A?
Is 1. It's just 1.
1. What's B?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. And what's C? 8. And if that is below you, I'm sorry, but it's helpful. Trust me. Because that is the number one place I see mistakes, is people just doing silly stuff with your ABCs. Okay, let's see. How do I find my axis of symmetry?
Well, x equals negative b over 2a.
Okay. X equals negative b over 2a. Didn't we keep having negative b's, I guess? So this is going to be the opposite of negative 4 over 2 times 1. Opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. 2 times 1 is 2. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have an axis of symmetry of x equals 2. Now that I have my axis, what do I find?
Your vertex.
We're going to find the vertex. How do I find the vertex?
Plug it in.
Okay, we're going to take that 2 we just found, and we're going to plug it into the equation. So, y equals 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 8. 2 squared is 4, minus 4 times 2 is 8, plus 8. Aiden was asking if I always go left to right. Here's one where my brain sees what's negative 8 plus 8.
Yeah.
They're going to cancel me 0, so what's that leave me with? A 4. Now, if your brain doesn't work that way, then okay, left to right. 4 minus 8 is negative 4, plus 8 is 4. So what is my vertex? 2, 4. Okay. Is a vertex and axis of symmetry enough to graph an equation, a graph of parabola? I mean, it can give you a basic parabola, but my minimum request, and any teacher's minimum request, is going to be one more point. Okay? Now, technically, if you have one more point, if it's a point that you find on the left side of the parabola, then what do we also know? Parabolas are symmetric, yes? So if you know a point on the left, you can figure out the point on the right, or vice versa. Now, the easiest option here is to go for your y-intercept. Okay, that's always the easiest option. A y-intercept occurs when what?
The graph of a quadratic function is a parabola.
Y-intercept occurs when? When the graph crosses the
Y-axis.
y-axis. And what do you know about all points on a y-axis? X is always 0.
Yeah.
So your y-intercept is always 0 something. Now, honestly, I'm going to take you the long way for a moment. The long way is we plug 0 into our equation. Okay? If I plug 0 in, 0 squared minus 4 times 0 plus 8. I took you the long way for a moment because I made you plug 0. But 0 squared is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. What am I left with?
Y equals
8. So my y-intercept is 0, 8. Now, why did I take you the long way?
to explain.
I mean, to show you this is a way that we can work, but what was the shortcut?
Look at the end of the thing.
Your y-intercept is always your c value. You don't have to do that work. C is 8. My y-intercept is always c. Every stinking time. Okay? Now, other than that, we have our axis of symmetry, we have our vertex, so we know where the parabola starts. We know one extra point, and we will take that extra point and then we will reflect it. Okay? So, shall we graph? Now, I'm going to put the axis of symmetry on here because I want you to understand what the axis of symmetry looks like. When I was doing as I said, when I looked at the homework last night, they did not require me to graph my axis of symmetry. Okay? I think it will tell you if you need to graph the axis of symmetry. So, axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Axis of symmetry is a vertical line, yes? Goes through the center of the parabola. So if you ever have to graph the axis of symmetry, which you do sometimes, you go to x equals 2 and you make a vertical line. Now that vertical line though is dashed. You don't draw an axis of symmetry as a solid line, you draw it as a dashed line. And what that is showing is that's just showing where my parabola centers. And I think it's helpful to see the visual here. Now, that's x equals 2. Where's my vertex?
2, 4.
2, 4. Which notice, so from the origin I go right 2, up 4. Notice that's on my axis of symmetry, right? As it should be. If it's not, you have a problem. Now, think with me. Is my parabola supposed to open up or down? How do I know it's supposed to open up?
It's not a negative.
Because A was positive, yes? Okay, because A was positive, I know it's going to open up. Now, what's the other point we know? A y-intercept of 8. So on the y-axis, count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not 8, I don't think. 8 should be 2 from the top because it's a 10 by 10, I know that. Now, is that enough to graph my parabola?
No.
Technically, no. Now, here's my axis of symmetry, yes? Where is that point I just graphed in relation to my axis of symmetry? It is 2 spaces to the left. Does that make sense? The 0, 8 is 2 places to the left of the axis of symmetry. So where's another point I can use? 2 places to the right. Okay, so if this point ended up being 2 to the left of my axis of symmetry, I need the equivalent point 2 to the right of my axis of symmetry. Okay. And we're going to graph a parabola, yes?
Yeah.
A parabola is a U shape, not a V shape. I know we only have one extra set of points, but you can still make it more of a U shape and less of a V shape. Questions on this one? Got an understanding here, we think?
Yep.
So that means you're starting on the next one without me, right?
Yeah, I can. That's what you like.
Sure is.
I mean, you don't have to. I just, it doesn't hurt to think on your own, right? Okay, we have what we need from this screen. Okay, we're going to practice graphing again. As we graph this, notice the function is negative x squared minus 6x minus 1. I don't know. Do any of you care about the ABCs? Again, it's one of the first things I'm going to check when you come to me for help. What is A?
1.
Not 1, but
Negative.
negative 1, because it's in front of x squared. What's B?
Negative.
Negative 6, because it's in front of x. What's C? Negative 1, because it's the number added or subtracted by itself. It's a constant. Okay? Now, first thing I need to find is axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry formula is x equals
B over
2A.
Negative b over 2a. And I teach to put the negative with the b. Some people, or the book, or the computer, they might teach you just put the negative out in front of the fraction sign. I think it's easier to teach it just with the b, and you just change the sign of the b. So what's negative b? Negative of negative 6? Man, every b I've given you guys have been negative. I should have thought this through differently. Over 2a, so 2 times negative 1. Well, the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. 6 divided by negative 2. Negative 3. So I have an axis of symmetry, x equals negative 3. Now what? Okay. Vertex, and to find the vertex, we are going to plug it in. So, now, this is the part you probably need to pay attention to. Y equals, it's the negative of x squared. So this is going to be the negative of negative 3 squared. Minus 6 times negative 3 minus 1. That first piece is going to be where you make your mistake. It's the negative of negative 3 squared. So do negative 3 squared first. What is negative 3 squared? Positive 9. What's the opposite of positive 9? Negative 9. So we're actually going to use this as negative 9 there. So what that's saying is when you see negative x squared, I don't care what number you plug in for x, a positive or negative. Your value down here will always be a negative. Because it says to do the negative of whatever x squared is. Okay, minus 6 times minus 3 is going to be plus 18 minus 1. So negative 9 plus 18 is 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. What's my vertex? Negative 3, comma 8. If we all get that 8 number, it's easy to make that mistake if you didn't. Okay. What else do I need to graph? Okay. I need my y-intercept. You want the long way or the short way?
Short.
What's the short way?
0.
My c is negative 1. So my y-intercept is negative 1. Okay? And it's not even that you have to write it as an ordered pair, guys. Just knowing the y-intercept is negative 1 is good enough. The only thing that would affect, so like when I'm grading you, the question was if she doesn't write down y-intercept on her paper and just jumps over and puts it on the graph. The only thing that really changes is maybe how much partial credit I can give you. Because if you say c is negative 1 here, but then maybe you graph 1 over here, you know, I might give you a little credit for acknowledging it was negative 1. But that's, you know, so really it's not that you have to write it down. It's a choice there. Okay. And other than the y-intercept, we just then have to reflect that final point, right? Y-intercept, and then we'll reflect. Okay, did you graph?
Of course I did.
Did you put your axis of symmetry on there?
No.
Okay. And if you can do it without the axis of symmetry, as long as it's not required, that's fine. Now, I don't know. I haven't thought as far ahead as quiz or test time. Will I require the axis of symmetry? Possibly.
I'll do it.
So, okay, where's my axis of symmetry?
Negative 3.
3 left. Remember, it's just a dotted line. Then, where's my vertex?
Negative 3.
Left 3. Up 8. Now, before I do my y-intercept, what do you expect this parabola to do? Up or down?
Down. Negative.
It's going to open down because we had a negative value, yes? Now, what's my y-intercept? -1. So on the y-axis, I'm going to go to -1. Does that make sense then? Yeah, that's going to force my parabola to open down. Now, where's my other point?
On the other side, 3.
This is 3 to the right of the axis of symmetry, so now we need to go
3 to the left.
3 to the left of the axis of symmetry. Or in other words, there's 6 units between those 2 points, if that helps. Okay? Now, if you were able to graph that without doing your axis of symmetry, more power to you. If you kind of messed up your reflection and stuff there, you might want the y-intercept. And I'm going to attempt to make this U-shape as opposed to V-shape. Okay. Are we good? We have what we need here?
Yeah.
Easy money.
Speaking of easy money, let's go talk about some maximum profit.
Ciao.
Okay. So, as you start looking ahead at the next problem, yes, it's more of a word problem. Okay. Applications of parabolas. Maximizing something is often an application of parabolas. And so this next example talks about maximum profit. So the graph of the function is given, and it shows the profit a company earns for selling headphones at different prices. The question we're being asked is, what is the maximum profit? Now, there's a picture to help demonstrate. So you'll notice there's a parabola graph that represents that function. Shows selling price values along the x-axis, so those are x's. And your profit is along the y-axis, which is your y values. What is the maximum profit the company can expect to earn?
So we just need to
She says, so we need to find the vertex. Does that make sense? Because what do we have here? Where is the max profit? Where is this graph the highest? At the vertex, and this parabola is upside down, so this vertex is a maximum value. Okay, so yeah, we need to find the vertex. When it's asking you for the maximum profit, and this parabola is upside down, we're finding the vertex. Now, if you don't have a calculator by your side, you're going to want one for this problem. Just saying. I look at it this way. When it's a problem I want a calculator for, I know you guys want a calculator for. You guys want calculators before I do sometimes. But this one's a definite. Now, ABCs. Can you identify your ABCs?
Yeah.
A is -10. B is 700. And C is
-6.
-6,000. Big numbers, part of the reason I say you want the calculator. Okay. What do we find before we find the vertex? Do we still have to find axis of symmetry? Yeah. We still have to find axis of symmetry because we still have to have that to find our vertex. So, what's my formula for axis of symmetry? What's that formula? -b/2a. This is only going to be our, what, 5th time using it today, so should be starting to stick in your head. -b. Negative of 700, so opposite of 700 is -700, over 2a, 2 times -10. So, -700 divided by -20. I could handle this one without a calculator. A negative divided by negative is a positive. 70 divided by 20, okay, but I could think about canceling the zeros, and 70 divided by 20 is 35. Again, you have the calculator, right? Now, before we proceed, does x equal 35 make sense for my axis of symmetry? And I'm asking that as in, does that look like it matches up? And it does. Okay, because you got 20 labeled, 40 labeled, so 30 is that line in between. 35 is going to be halfway between. Okay, so now we find vertex basically, right? It's not even that we need the vertex, we just need the value. So, y equals negative 10 times 35 squared plus 700 times 35 minus 6,000. This is where the calculator comes out, yes?
Yeah.
If it hasn't already come out, I'm shocked.
I got this.
35 squared, I don't even know these values. 35 squared is something times negative 10. So 35 squared would be negative 1,225 times negative 10 makes it the negative 12,100 or 250. 700 times 35, 24,500 minus 6,000. And it's not that you even have to write down all those pieces. Did you do the math on your own, or you just copied mine down? Hopefully, if you did on your own, are you matching? Is your math matching up with my math?
Yes.
I ended up at 6,250.
Me too.
Perfect.
Now, don't move on and tell me you're done with this problem, because I'm going to disagree. I want to know, what is your answer? What was the question? What is the maximum profit the company can expect to earn? What is the maximum profit the company can expect to earn?
6,000.
Is it this 6,250?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, does that make sense with the graph?
Yeah.
That could be 6,250, couldn't it? That makes sense. And when do they earn $6,250? How many do they have to sell? Selling 35, right? So, or excuse me, selling the items at $35. Sorry, I forgot what it was. So when they sell the items at $35 each, they will maximize their profit and make $6,250. So I'm going to write that in words a little bit. In that the selling price of $35 per item, how do I put it, earns the max profit of 6,250. Okay? Good word problem application there. Tomorrow. We might finish these notes tomorrow now. I wasn't sure how far, I need to see how far we get today. Tomorrow, we'll pick up here, where we left off. You can do a decent amount of the homework at this point. Really, the only homework you cannot do at this point are when they give you 3 ordered pairs and say write an equation. That's the back page. I haven't taught that yet. Okay? But anything about graphing it, finding the vertex, you can do that. So you can probably, I think there's 12 questions of homework. You can do probably all but about 3, I'm guessing. So, wouldn't hurt you to go ahead and get a jump start on that.